And a clean start. Alfred is out. Liston in 5. Sears in lane 3. Julian Alfred. Outstanding close. A great race. 6:99 for Julian Alfred.
Second fastest woman in history over the indoor distance. Only 0.02 seconds separate her from a world record that has stood untouched for more than 30 years. And incredibly, the athlete who first inspired her to dream of moments like this was none other than Usain Bolt. Bolt changed sprinting forever. As the fastest man the world has ever seen, he didn't just break records. He inspired an entire generation of young athletes from small nations to believe they could compete with the biggest powers in track and field. Among those dreamers was a young girl growing up on the Caribbean island of St. Lucia. Julian Alfred has openly admitted that watching Bolt dominate the Olympic Games and World Championships convinced her that greatness wasn't limited to athletes from the traditional sprinting superpowers. If Bolt could put Jamaica at the center of the track world, why couldn't someone from St. Lucia do the same? Today, that same little girl has become an Olympic champion herself, and now the entire athletics world is comparing her to some of the greatest sprinters in history as she closes in on one of the oldest records in the sport. But to appreciate just how extraordinary that achievement is, you have to go back to where it all began. Julian Alfred was born on June 10, 2001, in Cicerone, a small community just outside Castries, the capital of St. Lucia. It's a country with fewer than 180,000 people, a nation better known for its beaches than producing world-class sprinters. Before Alfred arrived on the scene, very few people believed an athlete from St. Lucia could ever become an Olympic champion. Ironically, her journey into athletics wasn't carefully planned as a child. Alfred loved racing the boys during school recess. She simply enjoyed running faster than everyone else. One day, her school librarian noticed her natural speed and suggested she join the school's track team. That simple recommendation changed her life forever. Under the guidance of local coach Cuthbert Modest, Alfred quickly developed into one of the most promising young athletes on island. Every competition revealed another level of talent, and it became obvious she possessed something special. Then tragedy struck in 2013. When Julia was just 12 years old, her father passed away. The loss devastated her. Athletics suddenly seemed meaningless, and she stepped away from the sport completely. At an age when most children are simply trying to understand life, Julian was forced to deal with unimaginable grief. For a time, it looked as though her sprinting journey might end before it had truly begun. But the people around her refused to let her give up. Family members, coaches, and friends encouraged her to return to the track, believing running could become a source of strength rather than pain. Slowly, Alfred rediscovered her passion, and when she came back, she returned with a new level of determination. Then came the biggest sacrifice of her young life. At just 14 years old, Julian left St. Lucia and moved to Jamaica on her own to continue developing as a sprinter. Imagine that for a moment. A teenage girl leaving her home, her family, and everything she had ever known to chase a dream inspired by the very country she was moving to. It was a decision that demanded enormous courage. She wasn't guaranteed success. She wasn't guaranteed an Olympic medal. She simply believed that if she wanted to become one of the world's fastest women, she had to be willing to leave her comfort zone and dedicate her entire life to the pursuit of greatness. That decision would eventually change not only her own future, but the history of St. Lucian sport forever. What happened next would shape Julian Alfred into the athlete the world knows today. After moving to Jamaica, Alfred enrolled at St. Catherine High School, where she stepped into one of the toughest sprinting environments on the planet. Every year, the legendary ISSA Grace Kennedy Boys and Girls Championships brings together the fastest young athletes in Jamaica, the same competition that launched the careers of countless Olympic and world champions. Imagine being just 14 years old, living away from your family in a foreign country, and try to earn respect in the nation that had become the global capital of sprinting. This was the same Jamaica where Usain Bolt had rewritten history only a few years earlier. Rather than being intimidated, Alfred embraced the challenge. She has often credited Bolt as the athlete who inspired her to believe that greatness was possible, and training in Jamaica only strengthened that belief. Every race, every practice, and every championship pushed her closer to becoming one of the fastest young sprinters in the world. The breakthrough arrived in 2018. Competing at the Youth Olympic Games in Buenos Aires, Alfred captured the silver medal in the 100 meters, earning St. Lucia's first ever medal at the Youth Olympics. For her country, it was a historic achievement. For Alfred, it was proof that every sacrifice had been worth it. She later described that race as the moment she realized something extraordinary was possible. Take a moment to think about everything she had already overcome. A young girl who lost her father at just 12 years old, who stepped away from athletics because the pain became too much, who then made the incredibly difficult decision to leave home at 14, moving alone to Jamaica with nothing guaranteed except hard work. There was no professional contract waiting for her, no scholarship promising success, no family already living there to make the transition easier, just a teenager chasing a dream inspired by Usain Bolt. determined to prove that her story would not end in tragedy. She immersed herself in the most competitive sprint culture on earth, training every day alongside athletes who had grown up in an environment built specifically to produce world-class speed. And the results kept getting better. Her next stop was the University of Texas, where her talent exploded onto the international stage. As a teenager, Alfred became one of the fastest indoor sprinters the collegiate system had ever seen. But just as her momentum was building, the COVID-19 pandemic brought the 2020 season to an abrupt halt. For many athletes, that interruption stalled their progress. For Alfred, it became another obstacle to overcome. She returned stronger than ever. On February 25, 2023, at the Big 12 Indoor Championships in Lubbock, Texas, she made NCAA history by becoming the first woman ever to break 7 seconds in the indoor 60 meters, stopping the clock in an astonishing 6.97 seconds. 2 weeks later, she delivered a performance that many track analysts still describe as one of the greatest single-day displays in collegiate sprinting history. At the NCAA Indoor Championships in Albuquerque, Alfred dominated both sprint events. She ran 6.94 seconds to win the 60 meters before coming back later the same day to claim the 200-meter title in 22.01 seconds. Winning one NCAA sprint championship is difficult enough. Winning both on the same day at that level is almost unheard of. Her 6.94 was especially significant. It missed Irina Privilova's legendary indoor world record of 6.92, set back in 1993, by just 200th of a second while matching the North American record. In a single afternoon, Julian Alfred had established herself as the joint second fastest woman in history over the indoor 60 meters. Now there was no question about her talent. The only question was whether she could produce those performances against the very best professionals in the world. That opportunity arrived later in 2023 at the World Championships in Budapest. The competition was unlike anything she had experienced before. The world's fastest women stood on the same starting line, established stars with years of championship experience, including Sha'Carri Richardson and Shericka Jackson. Alfred fought hard, finishing 5th in the 100 meters and 4th in the 200 meters. They were outstanding performances for such a young athlete, but they came without a medal. Later that season, she also anchored a relay team to an impressive 41.55 second performance, showing that her speed translated across every sprint event. Yet in elite athletics, statistics rarely silence critics. Only championship medals do. And despite all the progress, the doubts returned. Had Julian Alfred become another phenomenal college athlete who couldn't quite make the leap to global dominance? History is full of NCAA stars whose careers plateaued after turning professional. Many wonder whether Alfred would become another name on that long list, or whether something even greater was still waiting just around the corner. After Budapest, the pressure on Julian Alfred became even greater. She wasn't just racing for herself anymore. Every time she stepped onto the track, she carried the hopes of an entire nation. St. Lucia had never produced an Olympic medalist, never celebrated a global sprint champion, and never truly believed one of its athletes could stand on top of the sport's biggest stage. That responsibility would have overwhelmed many experienced professionals. Alfred embraced it. Instead of allowing the disappointment of Budapest to define her, she used it as motivation. What followed became the greatest 12-month stretch of her career. The first breakthrough came in early 2024. At the World Athletics Indoor Championships, Alfred stormed a victory in the 60 meters, becoming the first athlete in St. Lucia's history to win a senior global title. It was a historic achievement, but it turned out to be only the beginning. A few months later came the moment that changed everything. The Paris 2024 Olympic Games. Facing the fastest women on earth, Alfred delivered the race of her life. She exploded out of the blocks, stayed composed through the drive phase, and powered across the finish line in 10.72 seconds, setting a new national record and capturing Olympic gold in the 100 meters. It wasn't just the biggest victory of her career. It was the first Olympic medal of any kind in the history of St. Lucia. Days later, she added another chapter to that story by winning silver in the 200 meters, proving her Olympic triumph was no fluke. Back home, the celebrations were unlike anything the island had ever experienced. The government officially declared September 27, 2024, Julian Alfred Day, honoring the woman who had forever changed the country's sporting history. Reflecting on the achievement, Alfred said, "I have worked so hard to get to this point. I had so many challenges in my life, and to finally cross the line first at the Olympic Games has always been my dream." Think about what that moment meant. A nation that had spent decades watching Olympic Games end without a single medal suddenly had an Olympic champion. One race didn't just transform Julian Alfred's career. It transformed what an entire country believed was possible. Years earlier, Usain Bolt had inspired Jamaica by showing the world what a small Caribbean nation could accomplish. Now Alfred had done the same for St. Lucia. If you made it this far, let me know in the comments. Did you know who Julian Alfred was before she won Olympic gold in Paris? Or did that race introduce you to one of the fastest women in the world? Because after becoming an Olympic champion, Alfred wasn't satisfied. She had another target in mind. By the end of 2025 and into 2026, she had become obsessed with one number, 6.92 seconds. That was the indoor 60-meter world record, set by Irina Privlova back in 1993. More than 3 decades had passed, and nobody had managed to erase it. After winning bronze in the 100 meters at the 2025 World Championships, before seeing her season disrupted by injury, Alfred returned with one clear objective. She wanted that record. She opened her 2026 indoor season at the Tyson Invitational in Fayetteville, Arkansas, immediately producing the fastest 60-meter time in the world that year. Just 2 days later, she raised the level again. Alfred crossed the line in 6.99 seconds, smashing the meet record of 7.02 that had stood since 2012. That performance made her the owner of the 3 fastest times in the world for the 2026 season. Even more impressively, she became only the second woman in history to break the 7-second barrier 6 different times, trailing only the legendary Irina Privlova. Her lifetime best of 6.94, set 3 years earlier, still ranked as the joint second fastest indoor 60-meter performance ever recorded. Just 0.02 seconds separated her from one of the oldest world records in athletics. She didn't break it that night, but every race reminded the sprinting world that she was getting closer. Then came the 2026 World Indoor Championships in Turin, Poland. Alfred claimed the bronze medal in the 60 meters, missing silver by an astonishing 0.003 of a second. Even on a day that wasn't perfect, the gap between Alfred and history remained almost impossible to measure. As the outdoor season arrived, she carried that momentum with her. She claimed victory in the 200 meters at the Rome Diamond League, then followed it up by winning the 100 meters in Oslo, proving once again that her dominance wasn't limited to indoor racing. The Olympic champion wasn't slowing down. If anything, she looked faster than ever. The incredible part is that her dominance extends far beyond the 60 meters. Her indoor success may grab the headlines, but Julien Alfred has proven time and time again that she is just as dangerous outdoors. Victories in the 100 meters and 200 meters against the world's best athletes have shown that the 60-meter chase is only one chapter of a much bigger story. And when you step back, the journey comes full circle in the most remarkable way. Years ago, Usain Bolt transformed the sport forever. He proved that an athlete from a small Caribbean nation could rise above countries with far greater resources and become the greatest sprinter the world had ever seen. Julien Alfred watched that happen. She has openly admitted that Bolt inspired her to believe the impossible was possible. Now think about where she started. A teenage girl from St. Lucia, a nation of fewer than 200,000 people, leaving home at just 14 years old to train in a foreign country. She wasn't chasing an ordinary dream. She was chasing the same standard of greatness that Bolt had established years earlier. Today, she's no longer the young girl searching for inspiration. She's become the inspiration. There's still one piece of history left to conquer. Alfred's lifetime best of 6.94 seconds leaves her just 0.02 seconds shy of Irina Privlova's legendary 6.92 world record. On paper, that sounds like a comfortable gap. In reality, it is almost nothing. 200th of a second is the blink of an eye, the difference between history and heartbreak. Yet, that tiny margin has protected the record for more than 30 years, surviving every generation of elite sprinters. That's what makes Alfred's pursuit so fascinating. The story isn't about a record that's already been broken. It's about an athlete who is closer to rewriting the history books than almost anyone has been in decades. And she isn't hiding her ambition. Speaking on a recent podcast, Alfred admitted that the 60 meters remains one of her favorite events. I'm really looking forward to competing in the 60 meters again. It's a fun year for me, doing the things that I actually love and enjoy. Her coach, Dick Florio, has taken that mission just as seriously. Together, they've studied Privlova's world record race frame by frame, analyzing every phase, from the reaction time to the drive phase, acceleration, transition, and finish, searching for the smallest technical improvement that could unlock those final 200ths of a second. That level of obsession is familiar. It's the same relentless attention to detail that transformed Usain Bolt from a gifted teenager into the greatest sprinter in history. Now Alfred is following a remarkably similar path. Every race, every training session, and every championship is bringing her one step closer to joining the legends she once admired. Then comes the next major milestone. Los Angeles 2028. Julien Alfred will be 27 years old, right in the middle of what is typically considered a sprinter's prime. She'll return as a defending Olympic champion in the 100 meters, carrying the hopes of St. Lucia once again. But by then, another question may dominate the conversation. Will she arrive in Los Angeles as the world record holder? If her current trajectory continues, people won't be asking whether she belongs among the greatest sprinters in history. They'll be asking whether the young girl inspired by Usain Bolt has finally completed the journey by rewriting a record book that has remained untouched for more than 3 decades. So here's the question for you. Does Julian Alfred finally break the women's 60-meter world record before the Los Angeles Olympics? And can she successfully defend her Olympic 100-meter title in 2028? Let me know your prediction in the comments below. I read every single one. And if you want to follow Julian Alfred's journey as she continues chasing history, make sure you subscribe, because this story is far from over.